One of the most common complaints I've heard about the Raspberry Pi Pico is that it doesn't have wireless capabilities. So in this video, we're going to learn how to use the HC-05 module. This is a Bluetooth module with the Raspberry Pi Pico to give it Bluetooth capabilities. So let's look at how the HC-05 is connected to the Raspberry Pi Pico. We're actually going to only use 4 of these 6 pins, and as you can see here, it says power 3.6 volts to 6 volts and level 3.3. What that means is to power it, we're going to use the VCC ground, and the VCC pin should be fed anywhere between 3.6 volts and 6 volts. That is usually 5 volts. Now that's a slight problem because the Raspberry Pi Pico here is 3.3 volts. We can actually get around it. I wouldn't recommend this, but you theoretically can. So if you look really closely, that 3-pin device there, that is the voltage regulator that takes the 3.6 to 6 volts down to 3.3. And that top pin right there, if you solder a wire to that top pin right there and connect that to 3.3, it should work. I'm not going to do that, and I wouldn't recommend you do that, but you can. And then the 2 other pins. The HC-05 uses a UART connection. That's a serial connection. So it needs 2 data pins, the RX and the TX. And the RX pin gets connected to pin 1 on the Raspberry Pi Pico, and the TX pin gets connected to pin 0. Once you power up your HC-05 module, you're going to want to connect to your Windows computer. And to do that, it's very simple. You go to your devices, settings, then you click add Bluetooth or other device, and then click Bluetooth. And you'll find that either a device called HC-05 or HC-2010-0601 is found. You want to connect to that. The default pin will be 1, 2, 3, 4. So you connect to that. And then, to find out which COM port it's connected to, we want to go to more Bluetooth options, COM ports, and you'll see your HC-2010-0601 or your HC-05. And you want to find the one that says DevB. And remember that COM port. For me, it's COM4. So let's look at the code that will utilize the HC-05. It's very simple. It just runs off the hardware UART library. So we start by initializing UART. UART is the, if you remember, is the communication standard that the HC-05 uses. And we're using UART 0 at a baud rate of 9600 because that's what the HC-05 expects. Then we set pin 0 and 1 to be used as UART. And then instead of printf like you would use with the USB serial, if you don't know how to use that, look in the corner. We use UART puts, and you use UART 0 here. And then it's just a standard string. I use hello world. Alright, let's look at how we're actually going to see the serial coming back from the Bluetooth module. It's actually super duper simple. You can use the exact same method you used for USB serial. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. I'm going to use PuTTY, and remember the DevB COM port was COM4, so I just use COM4 in PuTTY and open it up. It creates this serial terminal. You can see every 1 second it prints out hello world, and that's coming from the Bluetooth module to my computer wirelessly. So as you can see, it's actually very easy to add Bluetooth capabilities to your Raspberry Pi Pico using an HC-05 module. If you have any questions, be sure to leave a comment down below. If you liked the video, hit the like button, and be sure to subscribe because I have 1 or 2 more Pico tutorials coming soon, and then a few cool robot builds. See you next time.